Greetings, my friends! I'm so happy you could join me this week while we talk about a Forlorn Fury 10th edition list. Yeah, those are two words and sentences you don't really hear together anymore. But this is Angelic Inheritors RTT winning tournament list. It's been so long, it feels like every week someone is winning a tournament with Liberator Assault Group, but in the last few weeks, a few different channel members have reached out to tell me about their Inheritors winning list, so we've got something new and exciting, so let's dive in to this week's tactics video. So it gives me great pleasure to talk about the goals for this week's video. Every week, like I said, loads of people winning Liberator Assault Group. So today we're going to look at the RTT winning list. This was a channel member. His name was Courier 13. He played Black Templars, Chaos Knights, and Grey Knights. 3 victories. And obviously, if you've been living under a rock and you don't know how you play Angelic Inheritors, then you have character units. And there are some caveats on that. For example, you can actually take an Adeptus Astartes unit and attach an Inquisitor, because then that gives them the character keyword. So basically, any Adeptus Astartes character unit from your army is eligible to shoot and declare charge in a turn which it fell back, and each time a model from this unit makes an attack, reroll hits and wounds of 1. So we normally see people take Sanguinary Guard plus Captains. The reason you take Sanguinary Guard plus Captains is Sanguinary Guard now hit on 2s, so they hit on 2s rerolling 1s, and if you don't know the math, that is a 97% chance to hit. Death Company hit on 3s. They reroll all hits, so that's an 88% chance to hit. So it makes your Sanguinary Guard and your Death Company, those units attached, become super reliable. You can reroll wounds of 1. So if you play your stratagem, Focused Fury, to get lethal hits and lance, it gives you both in this detachment, unlike Liberator Assault Group where you have to pick one. In this detachment, you get both. With lethal hits and lance, your wound rolls actually become pretty darn great, because most of the time, you know, Blood Angels will wound big, nasty things on 4-ups, right? We're usually like strength 7, 8, 9, maybe 10, and then +1 to wound means we typically wound nasty things on 3s or 4s. So this detachment does just the same. You wound nasty things probably on 3s or 4s, but now you reroll 1s, which gives your wound rolls even more reliability. So, let's start with the list, right? And what would you expect to see? Well, you'd expect to see 3 captains. 3 units of Sanguinary Guard. Very simple. I would actually have probably stipulated, if this was my list, that some of these Sanguinary Guard have blades and some of them have spears. Because I think the spears have become a hell of a lot better now. They have lance built in. But I hasn't stipulated, so I assume that these were all blades. We also see this sometimes where people take hand flamers, because the hand flamers actually help a little bit against hordes with the d6 shots, and then you will be re-rolling 1s on those hand flamers. So if you do roll 6 shots and you are facing like a horde army, or you're facing Eldari or something, if you're wounding reasonably okay with your hand flamer, then reroll 1s just makes that better. We also have the Death Company Captain with the 6-inch scout move enhancement. So this is how you get Forlorn Fury, and you have 10 Death Company with him. So you've got the you've got the Death Company Captain, who's giving you sustained hits on 6s. Death Company are re-rolling all hits, and then you've got the 10 Death Company Marines. And the interesting thing about this, right, is Liberator Assault Group gives you 1 extra attack per model when you make the charge, right? If you are getting sustained on 6s, that is equivalent of 20% more hits, because you're re-rolling all hits as well. So you're not just getting the 16% sustained, you're actually getting closer to 20 because you're re-rolling 1s into sustained. So essentially what this means is this Death Company with the sustained 6, for all equivalent purposes, has basically the same number of attacks as Liberator Assault Group, right? And I think that is pretty meaningful based on the fact that we get to reroll 1s to wound, and we can also get lethal hits and lance for 1 CP. With the Scout enhancement, that also means there's a very good chance we can do a turn 1 charge. That will be our only unit doing a turn 1 charge. Remember as well, Death Company get to reroll charge rolls. Death Company with jump packs. So 6-inch move, 12-inch jump, charge, reroll charge. And because it's turn 1, likely nothing else will be charging, so we're going to take Focused Fury for lethal hits and lance. We got the Sanguiner, who we know and love. He's useful in this detachment. I think he's pretty useful. Hitting on 2s, again, rerolling 1s, gives him a 97% chance to hit. Yes, his strength isn't great, but again, reroll 1s, which actually kind of makes him better than he is. And like, he's just objectively better in this detachment than he is in Liberator Assault Group, because when he arrives, miraculously, he doesn't get the charge bonus for Liberator Assault Group, whereas in this detachment, he re-rolls hits and wounds of 1. Just makes him much better. The other cool thing is, in this detachment, we can actually put him back in reserve, so we can play mind games, we can start him on the board, we can lift him, put him back in reserve, and we can still miraculously save her into the battle if we need to. We've got a unit of sticky intercessors, great. We've got a singular ballistas dreadnought. Now, I would normally say Angelic Inheritors is a shooting detachment, and to back up the meaning of that, we have 6 plasma inceptors and 3 bolter inceptors. Cool thing about this is you can actually use the stratagem to make them a character unit. That is a stratagem in the in the Angelic Inheritors detachment that gives them the character keyword. We can use that on them when they are not on the board if we want to be able to reroll hits of 1, and we can also use that to then predict if my opponent's going to try and shoot at them. We can use the stratagem under a Great Wing to basically make them loan up within 18. So we can deep strike in within 6, and we can make it difficult for our opponent to pin down. We have a unit of infiltrators to screen, and this can be used aggressively or defensively. Bear in mind, all the inceptors are twin-linked. So twin-linked is just obviously good. Another thing to say is you could probably use Oath of Moment exclusively on their target, because Death Company aren't going to need Oath of Moment. Sanguinary Guard, like I said, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, not going to need Oath of Moment. So really, the things that are going to need Oath of Moment are the Ballistas Dreadnought or the Inceptors. So it's kind of an easy choice. You also have the Thunderstrike in there, which actually gives you +1 to wound after it is shot against monsters or vehicles. And that can be meaningful if, like, the enemy has some big nasty vehicles. Probably the problem with the Inceptors there is they'd only wound on 5s, not that great. Shoot them with the Thunderstrike, +1 to wound. It makes the las cannons and the frag missiles coming out of the Ballistas all that more better. And then it also makes both the plasmas and the assault bolters much, much better if you're able to shoot against monsters or vehicles. So I would say overall this actually has less shooting than we might typically see in I keep wanting to say Liberator Assault Group. See, I get too many damn submissions of Liberator Assault Group. This is less shooting than we typically see in an Angelic Inheritors list. Normally we would see maybe like another whole shooting unit. But what we've done here, or what Courier, Commodore was the other person, and we'll cover that list very, very soon on the channel, because I like to cover tournament winning lists, because lots of people come up with unique combos, and that's kind of the point I was making here, in that, like, normally when I've been playing this, I've probably been going more in the region of like 900 points of shooting, and when Jack came 3rd place in Las Vegas Open, like the best performance we've ever seen from Angelic Inheritors, he also did like 900 points of shooting. And this list we've gone more like 600 points of shooting, right? 660. But we've taken this big scout moving Death Company, which is something we've not seen, right? I haven't seen anyone do Death Company with the captain, with the scout move for a turn 1 charge in Angelic Inheritors. To me, Angelic Inheritors is more of a cagey detachment where I want to shoot you for a few turns and then charge. But this flips it on its head. So this is a great list to cover, and it's good to see how it did. And like I said, Courier told me I have a very aggressive fencing list where there's a lot of finesse, but I have a heavy hammer unit I hit my enemy with early, right? And it's that Forlorn Fury combo. So he's got his Death Company captain with 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, he'd be rerolling 1s, strength 8, AP 2. Then the Death Company Marines, we've got 9 attacks from the Power Fists, hitting on 3s, strength 8, AP 2. 6 attacks from the Eviscerators. They are sustained 1, but remember the captain's giving everything in this sustained 1. Strength 7, AP 2, and then the 20 chainsword attacks. It's 4 per guy for 5 guys. Rerolling everything. Strength 4, 1, 1. Now the whole unit has sustained 1. If we add up the number of attacks, I mean, we have 20, precisely 22 damage attacks and 21 damage attacks. So normally you would be saying that would be somewhere in the region of 16.6% extra, but because we re-roll all hits, the chances of re-rolling those hits back into another 6 basically means from our 20 attacks, you would expect 20% more, so you're going to get 24 2 damage at minus 2, 2, and you're going to get 24 1 damage at minus 1, 1. And then we get to reroll wounds of 1 as well. And then we can also do lethals and lance for 1 CP, and I think you would totally do that if there's a juicy turn 1 charge target. And the flash enhancement gives you that 6-inch scout move, which is kind of like pseudo Forlorn Fury. Forlorn Fury used to let you move 12, and used to actually be able to use that multiple times if you wanted to move 24 or 36 before the game started. But now you can move 6. Deployment zones are much closer together. I think there's quite a few situations, especially if you're playing that corners deployment, where there's the 9-inch radius around the middle. Then if you are 9 inches from that middle section, then if you have an 18-inch move, which the Death Company would with a 6-inch scout move, you're basically you're on the edge of your opponent's deployment zone, ready to charge in turn 1, right? And in game 2, he actually managed to use these to one-shot a knight, which I guess if you're deleting like a 400-point knight turn 1 before your opponent has even moved it, that's, as much as that is a psychological blow, that also can maybe really mess up their deployment or their plan or their strategy. I know, like, I was playing at a tournament recently and I lost my Storm Raven in turn 1 to indirect fire. Yes, it's madness. Indirect fire killed my like 16 wound, toughness 12, toughness 10, -1 to hit, -1 to wound, -1 damage. Storm Raven, indirect, lost it turn 1. But my goodness, like, I never even got to move the thing. I just put it on the board in an obscured position and it got destroyed. It really screwed with my game plan. Like, I had never actually played a game where my Storm Raven was dead before the game even started, if that makes sense. So if your opponent is so used to putting up a big melee knight on the front lines and they revolve their whole game plan around that, and you just lift it in turn 1, that can really screw somebody over. And spoiler, I lost the game where I lost my Storm Raven in direct turn 1, you know? So, he was playing on terrain layout 2, which is what we have here. So a good layout for staging, you know? You've got one objective that you can sort of happily hold from your home field. You've got one that you can put some scouts or a lone operative along here, pretty obscured, cannot be shot, can happily hold. And then you have units of jump, Death Company or Marines or whatever you want to put behind this wall that can threaten onto the middle, and it's kind of easier to threaten down this side as well, because if you can make the jump from here into this position and be obscured by the little blue ruin and be obscured by this, then you're pretty free to jump onto this. And I guess that's the advantage of Jump Death Company and Jump Sangry Guard. And it's kind of, I made a video a few weeks back about how good the Sangry Priestess is leading assault intercessors, and people were saying to me, like, John, have you played him yet? And I was like, but I don't play him because I love my units moving 12 inches. And I think when your units move 12 inches, and then you're all like for advances and you get like 6s or whatever, suddenly you're moving 18 inches, and when you're that fast, it's really hard to not sort of get reliant or get, I wouldn't say lazy, but you definitely appreciate how fast they move, and you feel like you can use that to their advantage. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll know that I often say one of Blood Angel's biggest advantages is our speed. So that's why most Blood Angels really stick to jump infantry. So, taking hold and tipping point. So, we're going to hold objectives. It's pretty simple, right? We're playing Gladius Black Templars. He deployed a combi weapon and the infiltrators aggressively to screen most of the middle of the board. And then I guess, like I said, there's lots of positions that you can do stuff on this map. And you can hide from a lot of shooting, right? You can hide here, you can hide in this piece here, you can hide here, you can hide here. So I've played this map before. There's like a somewhat decent firing lane, like 2 maybe somewhat decent firing lanes, but it tends to get gumped up in the middle. So that's going to play into the guy with lots of jump infantry. Probably an advantage on a lot of these maps at the moment to go second, but it is what it is. So game 2, Linchpin against the Chaos Knights, and it was tipping point, so that's hold your home field objective, right? He said it didn't even last very long. His opponent deployed too aggressively, his Forlorn Fury Death Company got in, and in turn 1, they take out a knight. What a great use of the Death Company in this detachment. I remember playing Forlorn Fury in tournaments last edition, and sometimes, honestly, you go into a matchup where you were really unconfident about winning, but the Death Company could just remove the opponent's big critical centerpiece early in the game, and every best laid plans for them all out the window. They're playing reactory to that, and it was really, really solid. And then game 3, he played against Grey Knights. It was Scorched Earth, it was Search and Destroy. The Grey Knight player had a lot of Strike Squad. Strike Squads can actually be kind of difficult for us to deal with because they all have 2-up saves and they do have like true silver armor which ignores 1 AP, and we don't have the greatest AP, I guess, on units like Death Company or Jump Intercessors. But he didn't commit turn 1. He was able to use the Sanguiner to deny any early trades. He took up a lot of space on the board, leaving him very little angles and baiting him into bad ones. And he also used Shadow of the Great Wing to deny shooting, which, if you're not familiar, that's what I was saying. On the character units, you can basically target any character unit and make them lone operative. And that can actually be quite a neat trick. And the reason it is a neat trick is, like, if you put a unit on this objective out in the open, and your opponent thinks, oh, well, if I move up here, I can get line of sight to them, and I can shoot them off. He might have to move into a position where he can shoot you, and the second he declares you, and you're doing an action sometimes, so he really wants to destroy you, you know, you're cleansing this objective, or whatever you may be doing, you just go, nah, I'm lone operative with an 18. For 1 CP, pick another target. And I would say if you can use Shadow of a Great Wing, it's like much, much better than like Go to Ground or Armor of Contempt, because it just flat out means you take no casualties, right? You know, like, if you're getting shot with a Sangry Guard, it can be good to use Armor of Contempt. It can be good to use Go to Ground and get cover. Excuse me. Saving on a 2 isn't the worst idea in the world, you know? Go to cover, ignoring 1 AP. But if you just can't be shot, then you just don't lose anyone. So useful usage of In the Shadow of a Great Wing and useful positioning of your models is probably one of the reasons that this detachment is just so good. And the fact that you can make any infantry unit a character, right? For 1 CP. You have to do that in the command phase, so you have to predict that, but it can be very, very strong. And by becoming a character, then you get those character bonuses, which is like fall back, shoot and charge, and also reroll hits and wounds of 1. So, if you get any value out of today's video, please do subscribe. My name is John. I'm here every week on YouTube making content for Space Marines. I want to make you a better Space Marines player. I'd like to get up to probably 25,000 subscribers. That's my current goal. So I think I can do it, but probably need your help. So please do hit the subscribe button. So thoughts and strategies, right? I really think it's quite interesting to see both a Dreadnought and a Flyer, and basically no Vindicator tanks and Angelic Inheritors. Ever since Jack played that top table at LVO and ran like the double Vindicator tank, they've been so used in this detachment. And one of the reasons you use the Vindicator tank is because you can pay 1 CP and give them sustained hits, which I guess on a strength 14 cannon with a lot of shots potentially is just very good. So it's nice to see someone changing the meta, right? Like, I feel 10th edition has actually struggled with this, because with no war gear and like no psychers and just less options all round, it feels like lists can get a bit stale. So it's nice to see someone coming out with like a completely different option that is doing well, right? You got those 9 Inceptors, Bolters and Plasmas, both potentially getting +1 from the Thunderstrike to help weaken pesky monsters and vehicles. And that's probably the thing that Angelic Inheritors struggles with the most, because it doesn't have a ton of punch up. You know, you've got your 1 stratagem, Focus Fury, that is 1 melee unit a turn, getting +1 to wound. So you do need some other punch into those harder to kill monsters, vehicles, and that's what these guys can do. It's got the classic Inheritors, which was basically 3 captains and 3 units of Sangry Guard. I'm actually kind of off that myself. I like 2 captains and a 6 and a 3 Sangry Guard. But if you want to go classic Inheritors, when this first came out, it was 3 captains, 3 Sangry Guard. And arguably, the Sangry Guard are better than when this first came out, because when they first came out, it was hit on 3s rerolling 1s, now it's hit on 2s rerolling 1s. So they went from like, I think that's a 77% hit chance up to a 97% hit chance. So that Sangry Guard, led by the captain, if they have 12 attacks on their data sheet, they're likely going to hit 12 times. It's quite easy to do that maths. It's very unlikely you drop enemy. Like I said, the Sanguiner gives you mind games. He can be deployed aggressively, he can return to reserve, he can heroically intervene from reserve, he's also lone operative, he's just a good unit to have, and I just think his damage output is miles more reliable in this detachment, and that's why I hate him in Liberator Assault Group. I basically made that video a few weeks ago saying how bad he is in Liberator Assault Group. I think he's alright in this detachment. He's still expensive at 140 points, but at least in this detachment he will actually do some killing. I hate paying like 100 points for something that just does no killing. That doesn't compute in my head. I am a blood angel. You know, I think that's why I don't play the Combi Weapon Lieutenant myself, because I always look at the Combi Weapon Lieutenant's datasheet and go like, oh, he's got knife. Oh, he's got sustained hits 1. You know, and I'm like, he's got a lot of attacks, sustained hits. I'm going to go and do something. I reroll hits and wounds, and then he does nothing. And I'm like, man, I don't like characters that don't do killing. Sticky objectives and screening potential, right, from the battle line unit and from the infiltrators. Notably, he has no scouts. So scoring in this list needs to be handled elsewhere. It's probably one of those 2 infiltrator / intercessor unit that I just said. And 660 points of shooting is low based on historical data for Angelic Inheritors. What's our strengths though, right? We've got 4 pretty potent melee threats and the real turn 1 Death Company potential. So it's the 3 Sanguinary Guard have all got better, and the Death Company obviously with that turn 1 charge. The Inceptors have those sneaky 6-inch strikes, making it difficult for your opponent to screen. And then with the various types of guns that they have, it gives them some versatility, right? The bolters could come in and kill some cultists. The plasmas could come in and kill elites or tanks. We've got 2 lone operatives. He had the Combi Weapon Lieutenant and he had the Sanguinar. Did I mention the Combi Weapon Lieutenant when I was going through his list? I maybe missed it, but he does have the Combi Weapon Lieutenant with like come back to life on a 2-up, which is pretty handy, right? The reason he's so good on the come back to life on the 2-up is you can just be a little bit more overly aggressive with him. You just stick him on the center objective and say, commit to kill him. So they have to move within 12 of the center objective, and typically if they're within 12 of your character, then you're within 12 for a jump pack retaliation / charge. We have the ability to tailor our list in terms of reserves based on what our opponent's playing. The 3 Sanguinary Guard plus captains have only got better since the data slate. Like, it's literally improved their hit rate by about 20%. So if you were using an Angelic Inheritors list that you thought was somewhat decent, and I had a decent one that went to a tournament and just missed out on going 4-1, so it would have been just 20% better now, because these guys just hit a lot more reliably. And then the Death Company with the sustained ones and rerolls everything is 20% more attacks, which actually puts the number of attacks very similar to lag. Yes, you don't have the extra strength from lag, but you do have reroll 1s to wound, and you do have potential lethals and lance. So it's still very, very good. What's the weaknesses, right? We certainly lost durability and invuns, and most of our guys, bar the Inceptors, are toughness 4 Marines. Most of the units are pretty expensive, so there's no trading. I think that's one thing that Liberator Assault Group does very well. You take a 90-point unit of jump intercessors or an 80-point unit of bikes, and you just trade them. You're just like, aha, I shall take this objective with these 5 jump intercessors. Yes, you're instantly going to kill them, but I will have traded probably for something that's more important, and now you have to deal with that. We do have a bit of weakness. Like I said, our strength is a bit lower, strength 7 or 8 typically. Having played this detachment to a tournament, what I found was if I was playing against armies of elites, like I played against custodes, I destroyed them, right? Like I was just like, everything was hitting all the time, everything was wounding reasonably well, like 3s, and but the reroll 1s just meant like I was just doing, and I think I played against orcs as well, where it just wounded everything so effectively. Because normally, I mean, wounding on 3s is pretty good, right? Like those strength 6 Sanguinary Guard blades, for example. But if you have reroll 1s to wound, it's just very, very strong when you have such reliable hitting. So I actually find this is a great detachment for fighting against elites, but not so much against fighting against monsters and vehicles. So if the Death Company and the plasmas can make up that, then that's very interesting. It did have like somewhat lack of a dedicated secondary scorer, and again, when it comes to Liberator Assault Group, I would have like a unit of scouts, and I also have a unit of jump intercessors, and I can move those guys around really easily, and I can score secondaries. Our Combi Weapon Lieutenant will do it a little bit, our infiltrators can do it a little bit, and maybe those sticky intercessors can do it, but there's not really a dedicated scorer. You can do it on a 3-man unit of Sanguinary Guard. It's not the worst thing in the world. They're also pretty resilient to battle shock, those 3-man units of Sanguinary Guard, and that like they never literally have to take battle shock, because when you lose 2, you're still at half strength, right? And it's 3 plus a character. So they're a decent unit for doing secondaries as well, but most of the time it's not ideal. But I mean, quite typically you'll probably have like a captain and a singular Sanguinary Guard running around together. At that point, they become a secondary scorer if you need it. So what's the thoughts overall on the list, right? Like, the intercessors are decent. It also has the safety of the infiltrators. There's a good number of fast units that can react to backfield threat. You've got lone operatives to help out. It does lack some durability on objectives, so somewhere on an 8 out of 5, 8.5 out of 10. Anti-infantry, anti-horde, right? Like, I think it's pretty strong. The flamers on the captains help out really well. The big unit of Death Company can help out. The inceptors, ideal for killing lower toughness enemies due to the rerolls to wound. So I don't think this list has a problem against hordes. In fact, I think this is probably, like, it's kind of ideal, maybe. And to anti-vehicles and monsters, like, it's going to rely on the Death Company and Sanguinary Guard to deal with the bigger threats. We only have 3 ranged weapons that are strength 12, and that would be the 2 shots from the Ballista Las Cannon and the 1 shot from the Storm Speeder. So using those wisely, and then using the plasmas to weaken, and then finishing off, that's a bit more tricky, and that's kind of where this list will live or die on into certain matchups. Most units are fast moving. We can put jump units back into reserve. We can move around well. We can react to threats. I think it's like an 8.5. And then typically I find Inheritors does amazing against lower toughness, but with Focus Fury for lethals and lance, if it can be played at the right time with the enemies weakened by shooting first, then this can obviously be a very effective strategy. It's nice to see a winning list for Inheritors that switches up the template away from that double Vindicator that everybody's running. Spoiler, I'm maybe running double Vindicator on this week's battle report because I haven't changed. I still think the Inceptors are super important, and there's proof here that the 10-man can be used effectively without Lamartus, which is not something that we've been seeing. Most people playing the 10-man Death Company are 100% using Lamartus. A big props go out to Courier 13 for the Scout enhancement to bring back that turn 1 Death Company charge for previous editions. I think that's somewhat thinking outside of the box, and I love it. And also a big shout out to the people that have actually been sending me tournament winning lists, and also the pictures that he sent of the scores and the maps and the little breakdowns of the game. It helps ever so much for me to make an effective video to share with all of you guys. So if you would like to support the channel, there's actually a deal going on at the moment where you can get like 3 Blood Angels audiobooks worth like over $100 for like $3. So check out this video if you aren't caught up on the Blood Angels lore and you would like to be caught up. Bear in mind, tonight Wargame Portal are getting the Battle Force boxes, and Element Games will have them tomorrow. Battle Force boxes typically sell out every year very quickly. If you want to get one, please do use the channel's affiliate links. I do appreciate it. Or the best way to support the channel, of course, is via the big join button underneath this video or over on Patreon. Thank you ever so much for getting to the end of the video. If you did actually win a tournament at any point, I've seen a lot of RTT wins, not so many GT wins, so I'm needing somebody from the community to send me a GT winning list with a bunch of information like this one, and then you'll, pretty good chance you'll be featured on the channel. Just, we haven't seen a Blood Angel win a GT for a little while. Anyway, guys, it's awesome to cover Angelic Inheritors. It's still a detachment that I really like. It seems to get overshadowed massively by Liberator Assault Group. I think I catch myself saying Liberator Assault Group like 10 times this video. But yes, we do have more than one competitive detachment. We have 2. So on that note, I will see you in next week's Tactics video. Thank you ever so much for watching. Please do leave a like before you go. And if you've got a question or a comment, you know where to do. Leave it down below, and I might get back to you depending how busy I am with the kids this week. We'll see you soon. Thanks again. By the blood are we made strong, brothers. Peace.